You know, I'm not a pilot, but I sure do admire people who are pilots, like my friend Mark, who lets me come out here and sit in the plane that he keeps not far from the city of San Antonio. I think it'd be difficult to fly a plane. I think it'd be especially difficult to fly a plane blind. Jim O'Neill did. Not that he intended to do so. The 65-year-old pilot was 40 minutes into a 4-hour solo flight from Glasgow, Scotland to Colchester, England, when his vision failed. He initially thought he had been blinded by the sun, but soon realized it was much worse. He said, "Suddenly I couldn't see the dials in front of me. It was a blur. I was helpless." And he gave new meaning to the phrase, flying blind. Turns out he'd suffered a stroke. O'Neill groped and found the radio of his Cessna and issued a Mayday alert. And Paul Gerard, a Royal Air Force wing commander who had just completed a training sortie nearby, was contacted by air traffic controllers and took off in O'Neill's direction. He found the plane and began talking to the stricken pilot. The commander told O'Neill what to do. His instructions were simple. A gentle turn here, a left a bit, right a bit. He hovered within 500 feet of O'Neill, shepherding him toward the nearest runway. Upon reaching it, the two began to descend. When asked if he could see the runway below, O'Neill apologized. He said, "No, sir, negative." O'Neill would have to land the plane by faith and not by sight. He hit the runway but bounced up again. The same thing happened on the second attempt. But on the 8th try, the blinded pilot managed to make a near-perfect landing. Can you sympathize with O'Neill? Most can. We've been struck, perhaps not with a stroke, but with a divorce, a sick child, or a cancer-ridden body. Not mid-air, but mid-career, mid-semester, mid-life. We've lost sight of any safe landing strip, and in desperation, we've issued our share of Mayday prayers. We know the fear of flying blind. Unlike O'Neill, however, we hear more than one voice. Many voices besiege our cockpit. The talk show host urges us to worry. The New Age guru says to relax. The financial page forecasts a downturn. The pastor says pray. The professor says phooey. So many opinions. Some tell us to lose weight, eat low fat, join a church, try crystals. It's enough to make you cover your ears and run. Oh, the voices we hear. How do we select the right one? So how do we select the right voice? A more important question cannot be asked. In fact, a form of the question was asked by Jesus himself when he said, "Who do you say that I am?" He had led his disciples into Caesarea Philippi. The region was to religion what Walmart is to shopping, every variety in one place. A center of Baal worship, an impressive temple of white marble dedicated to the Godhead of Caesar, shrines to the Syrian gods. Here Jesus, within earshot of every spiritual voice of his era, asked his followers, "Who do people say that I am?" "Some say that you are John the Baptist," they answered. "Others say that you are Elijah, while others say you are one of the prophets." "What about you?" he asked them. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." When it came to expressing the opinions of others, the disciples were chatty. Everybody spoke. But when it came to this personal question, only Peter replied. And we do well to wonder why. Why only one answer? Was Peter so confident and quick that the others had no opportunity to speak? Did Peter drown out the replies of everyone else? "You are the Messiah." Maybe Peter's confession echoed off the walls of the temples. Or perhaps it didn't. Perhaps no one else spoke because no one else knew what to say. Maybe John ducked his eyes and Philip looked away and Andrew cleared his throat. Nathanael kicked the dirt and then elbowed Peter and Peter sighed He looked at this lean-faced, homeless teacher from Nazareth and pondered the question, "Who do you say that I am?" It couldn't have been the first time Peter pondered this question. He must have asked it 1,000 times. That night when Jesus walked off the beach into the bay without sinking. The day he turned a boy's basket into an all-you-can-eat buffet. The time he wove a whip and drove the swindlers out of the temple. Who is this man? The disciples had asked the question, and so have millions of other people. In fact, all serious students of Christ, really all serious students of life, have stood in their personal version of Caesarea Philippi and heard Jesus inquire, "Who do you say that I am?" "Well, you're a decent fellow," some have answered. After all, if you can't like Jesus, can you like anyone? In Jesus, the poor found a friend, the forgotten found an advocate. Jesus was nothing if not good, true, blue, solid, dependable. Everyone's first choice for a best friend, right? Sure, if you want a best friend who claims to be God on earth. You see, for being such an affable sort, Jesus had a curious habit of declaring his divinity. Jesus claimed to be able to forgive sins, a privilege that only God can exercise. He claimed to be greater than Jonah and Solomon and Jacob, even Abraham. Jesus said that John the Baptist was the greatest man who had ever lived, but then implied that he was greater. Jesus commanded people to pray in his name. He claimed to be greater than the temple, greater than the Sabbath. He claimed his words would outlive heaven and earth, and that all authority in heaven and on earth had been given to him. Now listen, does a decent fellow say things like this? No. But a demented fool does. Maybe that's it. Maybe Jesus was a megalomaniac on the par with Alexander the Great or Adolf Hitler. But honestly, could a madman do what Jesus did? Look at the devotion he inspired. People didn't just respect Jesus, they liked him. They left their homes and businesses and followed him. Men and women alike tethered their hope to his life. Impulsive people like Peter, visionaries like Philip, passionate men like John, careful men like Thomas, and methodical men like Matthew, the tax collector. When the men had left Jesus in the grave, it was the women who came to honor him. Women from all walks of life, homemaking to philanthropy. And people were better because of him. You see, madmen sire madmen. Saddam Hussein created murderers. Joseph Stalin created power addicts. Charles Manson created wackos. But Jesus transformed common dock workers and netcasters into the authors of history's greatest book and founders of its greatest movement. Christ stunned people with his authority and clarity. His was not the mind of a deranged wild man. Demented fool? No. Deceiving fraud? Well, some have said so. Some believe that Jesus masterminded the greatest scheme in the history of humanity, that he out-Ponzi'd the swindlers and out-hustled the hucksters. If that were true, billions of people have been fleeced into following a first-century Pied Piper over the edge of a cliff. Should we crown Christ as the foremost fraud in the world? Well, not too quickly. Look at the miracles Jesus performed. The four Gospels detail approximately 36 miracles and reference many more. He multiplied bread and fish. He changed water into wine. He calmed more than one storm. He restored sight to more than one blind man. He healed contagious skin diseases. He gave steps to the lame. He purged demons. He stopped a hemorrhage. Why, he even replaced a severed ear. Had Jesus been a trickster, the first Christian congregation would have died a stillborn death. People would have denounced the miracles of Christ. But you know, they did just the opposite. They believed
in them, they believed in him, and they spoke about him. The church exploded like a fire on a West Texas prairie. Why? Well, because Jesus performed public, memorable miracles. He healed people. So what if Peter's answer was the correct one? You are the Messiah. What if Jesus really was and is the Son of God? If so, then we can relish this wonderful truth. We never travel alone. True, we cannot see the runway. We do not know what the future holds. But no, we are not alone. We have what Jim O'Neill had, the commander's voice to guide us home.